good evening and welcome to Essential Baits TV. I just wanted to touch for several minutes on a really important aspect of carp fishing, particularly prevalent at the moment, because it seems to be, I'm getting a lot of messages based, particularly because of this hot weather, based on the fact that the fish are proving quite difficult to catch at the moment. They seem to be really heavily preoccupied, particularly on rich waters with not a great head of carp in, it must be said, but they seem to be preoccupied on naturals, and it can be very, very difficult to catch. Now, I want to give you a few sort of pointers as to how you can prevent that and what can give you a really big edge. Now, I'll be the first to say that in carp fishing, the most important aspect of successful carp fishing is location. I mean, if you get, every successful carp angler I know has got the ability to locate carp, but we can't always do that if the swims aren't available and what have you. But the next big thing to that, once you've sorted that out, is bait choice. Make no mistake, when the fish are on naturals, bait choice is absolutely key. And there's very, very few baits out there that can actually compete side by side with their natural food. And I'm going to tell you why and the reasons. So first of all, the bait that you're using is going to be nutritionally viable, because there's no point otherwise trying to compete with their natural food, which obviously the carp gain a great deal of benefit from eating. So you've got to put a food source amongst it which is nutritionally viable. And my favourite bait of all time for that is the B5, and I think that's been proven over the years. On 20 odd years it's been in use, right from when I first developed it at Ashley Pool all those years ago, right through to the current day. It hasn't changed. It's caught numerous big fish from difficult waters, all the big known fish, all the sort of prestige big fish in the country, from the Yateley fish through to the Raisbury fish through to the Black Mirror and such like, on a few occasions I might add. So it's got a proven track record for catching fish on a consistent basis from rich waters. So if the fish are, it will undoubtedly give you a massive edge when the fish are preoccupied on naturals, because it's nutritionally viable. In fact, only the beginning of last week, I think it was, I had a message from a guy, he may be even listening to this, called Paul. He's going to be a bit embarrassed if he is, but so apologies in advance. Paul Compan, who's fishing with an old mate of mine who I haven't seen for many years, Ronnie Buss. Hello Ronnie, if you're watching. And Paul was really struggling. He said that he hasn't had nothing for several weeks. The fish seem to be preoccupied. I don't know whose bait he's using. It's not for me to say. No interest in that. I know it wasn't my bait. But he said, what could I use to give him an edge? And I straight away pointed him towards B5. In them situations, Paul, every time the B5. So he's ordered up some of the shellfish B5 freezer boilies. Lo and behold, I think the day after he'd got them, or the following day, messaged me, thanks Mike, 28-pound mirror, first time using it. So it just shows you that it can just change just like that, the choice of bait. Lo and behold, a few days later, which was this weekend just gone by, this guy, Paul, has messaged me during the early hours, woke me up. Thank you for that, Paul. No, I don't mind, I'm only joking, but it was nice to hear. But it woke me up with a message to say that he just had a brace of 30s. So a change of bait completely changed his season. Absolute game changer. So nothing else was done different. It just shows you that choice of bait is vitally important. So the B5 and the K5 and the black snail are all capable of doing that. And I'll point out the differences between the B5 and the K5 in a minute. But before I do, I just want to sort of highlight one really important aspect, which I feel is vitally important when you're using a bait to compete with a natural food, and that is the crunch factor. Now, I wrote about the crunch factor in a number of magazines going back many years ago in the early days, when I used to crush up the eggshell after making the bait and put that in the actual bait itself, because carp have got pharyngeal teeth which are very powerful right at the back of their throat, and if you look at the natural foods that they're eating, zebra mussels, swan mussels, crayfish, shrimp, snail, they're passing them back and they're crunching them, and they love that crunch sensation. So if you're using a bait that you want to imitate, or at least be successful whilst they're eating naturals as well, crunch factors you shouldn't overlook it. It's a massively important aspect. My whole range of baits, I've really put a lot of emphasis and created that. Look at all the particles we use that are successful. Tiger nuts, peanuts, hemp, they've all got the crunch factor. They pass them back, they crunch them, and they love it. So, as I said, the crunch factor is important. The nutritional profile is extremely important, as I alluded to earlier. The B5 is based on marine extract, so it's got plenty of nutrition in there, as is the K5, by the way. The big difference between the two baits is the fact that the B5 is a different colour, of course. It's red. That's a reddish brown resulting from the robin red that's in the bait. It's got a very sweet red fruit, plum, shellfish plum background note to it. We've got a product in there that some of you will be a bit familiar with called Fruit Factor 6, which is a thormatin based natural protein sweetener. So the B5 is red in colour, reddish brown in colour. It's a sweet red fruit plum attractor package. The K5 is got a slightly higher level of krill in the bait, and it's got a krill attractor package, more of a sort of fishy stroke krill attractor package. So there's your two main differences between the B5 and the more recently released K5, which is a sister bait to the B5. Both baits we do the full range of liquids, which is the glugs and the liquid foods. We do the pop-ups, the wafters. In the B5 we do the matching pellets as well, and we do a range of fluoro pop-ups to match. You've got to remember that the B5 is our flagship bait. It's been going for many years, 20 odd years. So it's our biggest seller and our most popular bait. But the K5 is definitely sort of proving almost as popular these days. I mean, everyone that seems to use the K5 does very well on it. So yeah, I'll talk about the other baits and all other aspects of carp baits and bait formulation in the coming weeks and months. Just don't overlook, before I go, one last little tip. I know quite a few of my Team Essential members won't thank me for sort of telling you this, because they do very well on this. But we do a range of sprays. We've only got 3 in the range. We don't believe in sort of having hundreds of different products that are just untried and untested. We've got 3. One of them, which is the thormatin sprays, by the way, which is the natural protein sweetener I mentioned earlier, that the carp absolutely love. Where we do the the thormatin red, which is a cranberry stroke plum attractor package, and that goes really well with a B5. So don't forget to give. A lot of people think you just spray your pop-up or your wafter or your bottom bait, whatever you're using, but don't overlook spraying all the rig components. I mean, lead core soaks it up lovely, so just twiddle your lead core around, or your tubing, or spray it down your tubing, your lead clip, your lead, definitely your hook link itself, you know, trying to get it to absorb in your hook, particularly if you're a little bit worried about sort of tainted smells coming from, you know, especially if you're a smoker, for example. So as I say, last little sort of tip on that one, the thormatin sprays are absolutely brilliant for that. The gold particularly is good with the salami cream, for example, because it's got like a nice creamy attractor package. So yeah, just don't overlook them. Real massive edge, again, at any time of the year, but when the fish are preoccupied on naturals, and in this hot weather, when everyone seems to be finding it difficult to get a bite, there's just a few sort of little hints and tips there that will, or could, as with Paul I mentioned earlier, change your season round. So that's it for now. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch up a bit later. Bye.